Greetings, my friend. I'm Dr. Marianne, and I am so glad you're here. I'm a psychiatric nurse educator turned hospice nurse by profession, but I'm also someone who has spent my life fascinated by what helps people heal, grow, and come home to themselves. On this channel, we're going to explore the intersection of psychology, spirituality, consciousness, emotional well-being, health, courage, and what it really means to live an intentional life. This isn't a channel where someone who has it all figured out tells you how to live. It's a place where we become together. I'll share what I'm learning, what's stretching me, what's inspiring me, and sometimes what I'm struggling with. Because I think there's something powerful about watching a real journey unfold instead of only hearing stories after everything worked out. Today's video is especially meaningful because it's my very first one with you. And honestly, I've been avoiding this moment for over a year. So I thought the best way to begin wasn't by pretending I have all the answers. It was simply by telling the truth. I've spent over a year planning this channel. I've filled notebooks with ideas, imagined these conversations, and dreamed about pressing record. But I never recorded a single video. Not one. For a long time, I told myself I was in my Hermit Era. And honestly, I wasn't lying. I needed solitude. I needed space. I needed time to hear my own voice again. But somewhere along the way, my healing quietly became hiding. Have you ever done that? Have you ever convinced yourself that you're waiting for the right time, when really, you're waiting to feel safe? I think that's where I've been. Not because I didn't believe in this message, but because I wasn't sure I was ready to be seen carrying it. The interesting thing is, my life has actually become really beautiful. I wake up every morning in the home I've dreamed about. I have a peaceful apartment overlooking a lake with palm trees swaying outside my window and mountains in the distance. I sit on my balcony with a cup of coffee and think, I really live here. I drive a car that still makes me smile every single time I walk toward it in a parking lot. I love my work. I love teaching. I love helping people grow. I've even started scheduling my gym visit as the last patient I see every workday. Because I realized if I can show up for everyone else, I can show up for myself. Now, I want to be honest about something. I haven't completely transformed my health. You won't find before and after pictures here. I'm not making this video because I've arrived. I'm making this video because I've finally started. For the past few years, I told myself that my appearance didn't matter. It sounded humble. It even sounded spiritual. But if I'm really honest, sometimes I used that belief against myself. It became another reason not to fully show up, another reason to hide, another reason to postpone joy until someday. I'm done doing that. I'm learning that taking care of myself isn't vanity, it's self-respect. And that's become true in so many areas of my life. I've started paying more attention to what I consume. Not just food, but conversations, ideas, even the television shows I watch. I started paying attention to the stories I was feeding my mind. Stories about women choosing themselves, rediscovering joy, and taking up space. I realized those were the stories I needed to feed my mind, because the stories we consume eventually become the stories we believe are possible for ourselves. And without even realizing it, something inside me had begun changing. Not dramatically, quietly, like a seed finally deciding it was time to break through the soil. I just didn't know yet what would bring it to the surface. I don't think life changes all at once. I think it whispers to us long before it ever shouts. When I look back over the last several months, I can see that life was gently trying to wake me up. One of those moments happened when I attended Lee Harris's Energy Oneness Tour in Sedona. If you've ever been to one of his events, you know it isn't just information. It's an experience. One of the things he spoke about that day was what he called the feminine fire. He spoke about women who have spent years preparing and how eventually preparation has to become expression, finding their voice. There comes a moment when preparation is complete. Not because we're perfect, because it's time. He said this is not the season for women to remain silent. It's the season to be heard. I remember sitting there thinking, he is talking to me. Well, not literally, but something inside of me recognized that message. It felt less like learning something new and more like remembering something I'd forgotten. I left Sedona knowing something had shifted. I couldn't explain it yet, but I knew I didn't want to keep living the way I had been. So I made a very conscious decision. I told myself, my Hermit Era is over. I'm entering my yes era. Now that doesn't mean I'm saying yes to everything. It means I'm saying yes to the life I've been avoiding. I made one simple agreement with myself. If I plan it, I go. If I say yes, I follow through. No more backing out because I suddenly feel uncomfortable. No more negotiating with fear. No more waiting until I feel confident. And almost immediately, my life started looking different. I took a solo road trip from Phoenix all the way to Cincinnati. Now, for some people, that might not seem like a big deal. For me, it was another vote for courage. Then I camped at a flow arts festival. I visited a cat cafe. I went to the zoo. I spent time at the Herpetological Society. And I said that right. Little adventures, little yeses. None of those things changed my life because they were extraordinary. They changed my life because each one became evidence that I could trust myself. Every time I kept my word to myself, my confidence grew a little bit more. Not confidence because I had all the answers. Confidence because I was becoming someone who followed through. Then came something I never expected. I attended my very first death cafe. If you've never heard of one, people gather to have open conversations about death. The goal is to make death a normal part of life, a positive part of life. But here's what's funny. I thought I was going to learn something about death. Instead, I learned something about living. I walked into a room full of strangers, and by the end of the evening, we had laughed together, we had cried together, we had shared stories that normally stay hidden. What surprised me even more was realizing who was in that room. Many of the women were fellow light workers, healers, channelers, energy practitioners, or women who were simply deeply curious about consciousness, healing, and living more authentically. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had found people who spoke the same language my soul speaks. There wasn't any pressure to perform. Nobody was pretending to have it all figured out. There was just honesty, connection, presence. And then someone asked a question that stopped me in my tracks. What is something you've been putting off that it's time to act on? I didn't even have to think. My answer came immediately. My YouTube channel. It wasn't my mind answering. It felt like my soul answered before my fear had a chance to speak. Before we left that evening, each of us made a commitment. By our next meeting in 4 weeks, we would each take one meaningful step toward the thing we'd been avoiding. I said, I'm going to post my first YouTube video. Then another woman smiled and looked at me. She said, if you'll do it, I'll do mine. I've thought about her almost every day since, because in a strange way, this video isn't just for me. It's for her too. It's for every woman in that room. And maybe it's for you. That evening taught me something I wasn't expecting. For almost a year, I believed what I needed most was more solitude. But what I actually needed was community. I needed women who would remind me of who I am. Women who would celebrate progress instead of perfection. Women who weren't trying to compete. They were trying to become. Healing does happen in solitude. I believe that. But there comes a point where healing asks us to return to community, to let ourselves be seen, to let ourselves encourage others, and to allow others to encourage us. Around the same time, I found myself reflecting on something I had recently learned from A Course in Miracles. At its heart is a simple but profound idea. In every moment, we are choosing between fear and love. Fear tells us to stay hidden. Love asks us to trust. Fear says, wait until you're ready. Love says, take that next step. Fear says, people will judge you. Love says, someone may need your story. I realized that my Hermit Era had served a purpose. It gave me space to heal. But eventually, the very thing that had protected me became the thing that was keeping me small. And life kept inviting me back. Back to people, back to purpose, back to joy, back to my own voice. When I look at everything that's happened over the last month, I don't see random events anymore. I see a trail of invitations. Sedona, the Feminine Fire, the Yes Era, the road trip, the little adventures, the Death Cafe, the women I met there, the promise I made, and now, this video, this conversation, this moment. None of it feels accidental. It feels like life has been gently asking me the same question over and over again. Marianne, are you finally ready to stop hiding? And for the first time, my answer is hell yes. As I was reflecting on everything that's happened over the last month, I realized something. None of my life changed because I suddenly became fearless. It changed because I stopped waiting for fear to disappear before I acted. For so long, I thought confidence came first. I thought one day I would wake up and magically feel ready. Ready to get healthier. Ready to create videos. Ready to be visible. Ready to fully become myself. But I've started to realize confidence isn't the prerequisite. It's the result. Confidence is what grows every time we keep a promise to ourselves. Every time we choose courage over comfort. Every time we say yes, even while our knees are shaking. I think that's what this season of my life is teaching me. For years, I've been fascinated by psychology, spirituality, neuroscience, trauma, healing, consciousness, nursing, and what it really means to become whole. I spent my career helping other people grow. But somewhere along the way, I realized, just as words don't teach, knowledge doesn't transform us. Experience does. You can read every book, attend every workshop, listen to every podcast, meditate every morning, pray every day, journal faithfully, create the perfect vision board, and still never actually live the life your soul has been inviting you into. That realization was uncomfortable. Because I love learning, I love preparing, I love researching. I'm really good at all of that. I have spent years preparing for the life I want. But eventually, preparation becomes another form of hiding. And I think that's what my Hermit Era became. Not failure, not laziness, preparation. Preparation that had quietly overstayed its welcome. Maybe you've experienced that too. Maybe you've been preparing to write the book, preparing to apply for the job, to start the business, to have that difficult conversation, preparing to finally choose yourself. If that's you, I just want you to know something. You don't have to become a different person before your life changes. Sometimes your life changes because you decide to become more fully yourself. I don't know exactly where this journey is going to lead, and honestly, I'm okay with that. This channel isn't going to be a highlight reel. It's not going to be carefully curated to make it look like I have everything figured out. You're going to watch me become. You'll see me working toward better health. You'll see me learning how to care for my body instead of criticizing it. You'll probably see days when I struggle, days when I want to quit, days when fear gets loud again, because I'm still human. But I also hope you'll see something else, someone who keeps choosing to come back. One of my favorite images from A Course in Miracles is the idea that every moment offers us a choice, fear or love. The overarching theme of my entire life has been choosing love. It will always be about love for me. So when did I begin to choose fear? And I don't think choosing love always feels soft. Sometimes choosing love is uncomfortable. Sometimes choosing love looks like setting boundaries. Sometimes it looks like ending relationships that no longer honor who you're becoming. Sometimes it looks like walking into a room where you don't know anyone. Sometimes it looks like pressing record on a video you've avoided making for an entire year. Maybe love isn't always the easiest choice. Maybe it's simply the truest one. I've also learned that healing isn't something we're meant to do entirely alone. I spent a long time believing I needed more isolation. What I actually needed was the courage to let myself be seen, to find people who celebrated authenticity more than perfection, to find people who reminded me that becoming is a journey we were never meant to walk alone. That's what those women at the Death Cafe gave me. Not answers, permission. Permission to stop waiting, permission to trust my own voice, permission to take the next step before I could see the whole staircase. And now, I want to offer that same permission to you. If there's something your heart has been quietly whispering, listen. If there's a dream you've been postponing, take one small step. Not 10, just one. If there's a phone call you've been avoiding, make it. If there's a class you've wanted to take, register. If there's somewhere you've wanted to go, put it on the calendar. If there's a story you've been waiting to tell, good golly, open your mouth and tell it. Not because you're fearless, because your life is waiting on the other side of that yes. This channel is my promise to keep choosing those yeses. Some of them will be exciting. Some of them will stretch me. Some of them will definitely scare me. But I don't want to spend another year watching my life from the sidelines. I want to fully participate in it. And maybe, if you're here, you do too. So, I'd love for you to walk with me. Not because I'm leading from the finish line, but because I'm walking the path too. Every week we'll explore what it means to become more fully ourselves. We'll explore psychology, spirituality, healing, health, purpose, what it really means to become more fully you. And all the beautiful, messy experiences that make us human. We'll celebrate the victories, we'll learn from the setbacks, and together, we'll keep asking one simple question. What would love choose here instead of fear? If this conversation found you at exactly the right time, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what have you been putting off that it's finally time to say yes to? Because I have a feeling this community isn't being built around perfection. It's being built around courage. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for witnessing the end of my Hermit Era and the beginning of my Yes Era. Wherever you are on your own journey, I hope you remember this. You don't have to see the whole path. You only have to be courageous enough to take the next loving step. Until we meet again, may you have the courage to become all that you already are. Blessings.